Hi and welcome to the Sewing Studio. I'm Anna and this video is all about the Bernette B05 Crafter sewing machine. It's a heavy duty machine, so it really is a good all-rounder to cover a wide variety of projects. I'm going to talk you through all its features, show you everything that comes in the box. I'll show you how to thread it, do some sewing, show you its capabilities, and then talk a bit about warranty and support. Now, all those sections are split into chapters, so if you just wanted to see the capabilities, for instance, head straight there. So the B05 Crafter, as I say, is a heavy duty machine and it's a standard size machine, so you've got 6 inches of space to the right of the needle. It comes with 30 different stitch options, and unusually for a mechanical machine, within those stitches it includes a super stretch stitch for sewing lycra and also a blanket stitch. These are all detailed and selected on this dial here. This dial, you can change the length of the stitch, and that's up to a maximum of 4 millimeters. Up on this one here is where you would change the width of a stitch, and that's a maximum of 6 millimeters on this machine. This dial here gives you the ability to move the position of the needle, so either centre, left or right. So if you're sewing in a zip or doing some piping or something, you're able to move it across either way. You've got your reverse lever here for securing your stitches. Now down on the presser foot, it has an extra high lift so you can get thicker bulky items in underneath. The presser foot is a superior system. Sorry, not the presser foot, the feed dogs are a superior system. So there's nice control with this machine. Top speed on this one is about 1,000 stitches per minute. So it needs to have a good feed system to keep everything going consistently when you're sewing at those high speeds. The presser foot as well, I almost forgot, you can adjust the pressure with this little dial here that is applied to the presser foot, and that's really good when you're sewing delicate items. You know, sometimes they can get chewed up in the teeth, so if you slacken off the pressure, they just feed through more consistently. The bobbin is a nice and easy drop-in bobbin system, and then it's got a lay-in piece for you to put the thread, and there's no need to draw up the bobbin thread, you can just start sewing. It's also got a built-in needle threader, so nice and easy to thread the eye of the needle. If I pop this off, there's a lever in the back here where you can lower the feed dogs to do any darning or free motion work. And you also have a free arm here to sew any cuffs or hems. If I pop this back on, you've then got a bit of storage in the front here for the feet and accessories that come with the machine. So, what does come with the machine? So first you'll find the standard zigzag foot that'll already be on there when the machine arrives. And then you have a zip foot, an invisible zip foot, an adjustable blind stitch, an overcasting, and your automatic one-step buttonhole foot, as well as a range of accessories. And then you have your power lead and foot control, and then a quick start guide. And on the back of here, you'll find a QR code for you to get access for the full instruction manual. So next, I'm going to show you how to thread the machine, and we'll do some sewing, and you can take a look at its capabilities. So to thread the machine, you want to pop your spool of thread on the horizontal spool pin, and then use the spool cap just to pop on the end there. And that just stops it flying off when you're sewing. Now, there are paths for you to follow. So for everything to wind your bobbin, you're going to follow a dotted line that's on there. And for everything on your needle, there's a solid line, all with arrows. So first off, I'm going to go in under this guide here, and then under this block at the back, to then follow this arrow and come down through the tension discs in there. And then you want to go around, so I'm following this arrow here. And you need to be in this take-up lever, which is not in the right position currently. So what you want to do is turn the hand wheel towards you until it's in its highest position there. And then you can go back on the right, come forward on the left, and pop it in the very front of that piece. And then come back down and go in behind this guide here, and then the last one is at the very top of the needle in there. Now for the needle threader, you do need to make sure that the needle is in the right position. These are calibrated to come down at the exact spot every single time. But the best thing is, when you've done this piece with this in the highest position, the needle is then in the right state for the needle threader. And all you do is just come down as far as you can, and that moves forward. And what it does is it puts a tiny little hook through the eye of the needle that's going to catch the thread and draw a loop back. Now the thread needs to go around this. To make life easier, I like to do it when it's a little way down. Whoops. In under there, and then come around and go in through. There's like a little slot there and go in through. So the thread is now just sitting in that little hook. And then if I let go with my left hand and let go of the thread, that comes back up and you've got the loop in behind that you can just pull through the eye of the needle. And I'm just going to pop the thread under the foot. So that's the top part and the needle threaded. Let's look at the bobbin. So you just want to slide this to the right and take the cover off. Now there is a right and a wrong way to load this bobbin. And this is with the tail of thread to the left. So as you look at it, it kind of spells out a P for perfect. And you're just going to drop that in. And then what you're doing is putting the thread under this little lip here. So I usually keep my finger on it so you're threading with a bit of tension, and then you want to go in underneath and round to the back so the thread is fully in that piece. And then there's arrows here to guide you further around, whoops, she says, in and around, in under that one, and then there's a little cutter there that you can cut the thread off. Pop the cover back on, and there's no need to draw up the bobbin thread, you can just start sewing. So your different stitch options are detailed on this dial per letter. So the ones in black are your standard stitches, and then the ones in red are for your stretch stitches. The ones in grey are for super stretch. So like I was saying earlier, to sew with lycra and a blanket stitch option in there as well. So at the moment we're on stitch A, the standard straight stitch, which is what I'm going to sew out first. And I want the black stitch. I don't want to do a stretch one at this point. So I'm going to stay within the black numbers here for my length. And these are millimetres, so you go from 0 right the way up to 4. So a sort of standard straight stitch length is about 2.5. So you want to line it up with this dot here, and that's how you're setting your length, sorry. Don't want to confuse you, that's your length. Your width is up here. Now obviously on a straight stitch, all the width is going to do as you turn it is move the needle position. You'll still sew out a straight stitch, but now in the left position. I like to sew in the centre, so I'm going to stay on the 0, which is your centre position. And you can see your needle position here is in the centre as well on this dial. So you can quite simply scoot that one over to go to the left. And if you want to go further, you need to move that around, and then you can go to the right on there. But as I say, I like to sew in the centre position when I'm doing a straight stitch, so I'm going to keep it in the centre. I'm just going to grab my cotton that I've got here, drop the presser foot down, pop my needle in, and then put my foot on the foot pedal to start sewing. To secure those stitches, you just want to keep your finger on the reverse lever. So backwards, let it go, and you'll come forward again. And that was right up to the top speed there, which, as I say, is 1,000 stitches per minute. So I'm just going to secure that, lift the presser foot, take the threads out. There's a nifty little cutter on the side there that you can cut the threads. And that's your standard straight stitch. That's on the top and that's underneath. It's lovely and neat. Now, if you was to increase the length of that stitch, you're going to get less stitches on the same row of stitches. There's too many stitches there, but I know what I mean. And there you go. And because the stitch length is longer, obviously you're getting a longer stitch. That's quite self-explanatory. So there's less stitches over the same distance, but that's really useful when you're sewing like thicker fabrics or using a thicker thread, something like that. And that's underneath, still nice and neat. So to switch to a different type of stitch, you're just very simply turning this dial. Again, you've got the dot at the top here is your indicator. So if we go round to a zigzag, which is B here, again, we're still on the black, excuse me, still on the black. So it's going to sew out this black zigzag stitch here, which is your standard one for non-stretchy fabrics. So I'm just going to drop that in. No, I won't. I'll leave it out again. So at the moment, we're on quite a long stitch length at 4. So I'm going to bring that down to 2.5. And at the moment, it's just going to sew a straight stitch because I've got no stitch width set there at all. So let's go up to the maximum, which is 6mm, and make a start sewing. Now what you can do is alter obviously the width and the length to get a different stitch effect. So if you were wanting to create kind of like a satin stitch, you could go down to sort of a medium width and then take the length right down, and that's going to sew them really close together. Alternatively, again, you could go longer, so let's go up to 3, and then a little bit wider, or a little bit narrower. And that's how you're able to create different stitch effects by changing the width and the length. So that's your standard zigzag. And then you've got them really quite close together. When you're doing it that close, it's quite dense, so it's a good idea to put a piece of stabilizer underneath. And then just coming on to a bit shorter in length, and then taking it wider but a lot narrower. So although there is the stitches that are detailed on here, you can get different effects by altering the width and the length. So let's take a look at the one-step buttonhole. So the buttonhole foot, I think, yes, I did leave it in here. So this is the buttonhole foot. And what you want to do is slide this piece back to pop your button in. I'll just grab a button a minute. So pop that in and then sit it back there. And then that's giving a distance then for the machine to know the size of the buttonhole plus a little bit extra, so it will go in the buttonhole nice and easily, the button will. These feet are a snap-on system, so you can just push that and the presser foot will drop off. And then you're lining the little groove in the bottom of there up with the bar on that foot there. So I'm just going to pop that in underneath, use the extra high lift to get it in, and then drop that down on top, and then that's in under there. Now you want to get this needle thread underneath, so before I set the buttonhole or anything, I'm just going to pop my fabric in under, drop the needle in and back up again, just one rotation, so from that being at the highest point down and back up again, and then just pull my fabric through, and that will take the needle thread under for you. So to select the buttonhole stitch, it's got a specific buttonhole symbol here. So you want to go ahead and select the buttonhole, and then that symbol's replicated here as well on your stitch length. You've got a little bit of tolerance on the density of the buttonhole between 0 and 1 on the stitch length. And then your width, you want to be right up to number 6 so that the needle's in the centre position for it to start sewing. And then the last thing you need to do is bring down the buttonhole sensor. It's up here, just behind the needle threader. And you can see that's got the same buttonhole symbol on it. And what you want to do is push this to the back and you'll hear it click. Oh, okay. It doesn't click. I thought it did, but you just push that to the back and you can see it sat further back, and then that knows when to start the position of the buttonhole. So it's a good idea to put a little mark on your fabric, and the buttonhole is going to sew in that direction, and you can line that up in the window on the front there. drop the presser foot down, drop your needle in, and then what we need to do as sewers is watch when it's done its full rotation and when it comes back to the beginning and when we're going to take our foot off the foot pedal. So I'm just going to apply my foot on the foot pedal and make a start. So about there. And then what I'm going to do is go back to the standard straight stitch A, no stitch length, and I'm just going to do a couple of stitches on the spot to secure that thread, like that. Pop the presser foot up, and there's your nice easy one-step buttonhole. That's on the top, and that's underneath. And again, it's quite a dense stitch, so you could put a piece of stabiliser under there and that will reduce this puckering that appears around there. So let's look at a different type of fabric now. We'll look at some stretch fabric. So we want to reverse what we've just done. So you want to put the buttonhole sensor back up and take off the buttonhole foot. Pop the standard foot back on. There we go. Now I'm also going to change out the needle for a jersey needle, and that will help handle the stretch in the fabric, reduce skip stitches and things like that. It's the best needle for the job. And make sure when you're changing the needle that it's fully up into the hole as far as it can go. Now the needle threader, again, I need to make sure the needle's in the right position. I'm just going to go down and come back up. And then you want to come down, pop it in, lay the thread in, draw it back and pull your loop through. And I'm going to pop my threads in underneath. I'm just going to cut that excess off there and pop those in underneath. Okay, so the jersey that I've got is quite stretchy and it's got a bit of rib in it as well. So I'm going to choose this triple straight stitch. Nearly couldn't say that then. And that is the stretch version of your standard straight stitch. So instead of just doing one stitch as a running stitch, it does 1, 2, 3. So it does 3 in the same position. And that helps to give the fabric stretch when the fabric is being worn and things like that. You want the stitch to stretch with it. So to select that, I'm going to stay on letter A because this is the one that I want, the red one. But the stitch length, I need to move it round to the same red colour here. So S1 is for the red stitches and S2 are for the grey super stretch stitches. So I'm going to leave it on that. I'm going to take my stitch width back to 0 because I like to sew in the centre position rather than in the left, but you can leave it in the left, it's absolutely fine. I'm going to drop the presser foot down and make a start sewing. Just secure those. Go. Take this out. And that's done a really neat job on this fabric. It's sitting nice and flat. There's no sort of waviness in there. You can stretch the stitch with the fabric, and on the seam as well is nice and stretchy. Now let's take a look at the thicker side of fabrics. So I've got some 10-ounce denim with me that we sew in the shop. So again, I'm going to pop in the right needle for the job, which is a jeans needle. Take that one out. Pop that one in. Fully up and tighten the screw. Get the needle in the right position. Move the hand wheel down and back up, and then come down, lay it in that one, under, draw the loop. Easy as that. So there's no stretch at all to this denim. So I'm going to come off the stretch stitch and I'm going to stay on the standard straight stitch. But because it's thicker than the cotton we were using, I'm going to go up from a 2.5 stitch length to a 3. And I'm just going to pop it in underneath, drop the needle in and go. And there's your nice neat stitch. Nothing's skipped, nothing's missing. That's underneath. And the seam is nice and secure. So that's 2 layers. Let's double this over now and go through 4 layers. This is a heavy duty machine, so it should be no problem whatsoever. Drop the needle in. And as I say, no problem at all. Again, still nice and neat, nothing skipped, nothing missed, and still a secure seam. So let's double it over once more and go through 8 layers. So I'm just going to pop that under the presser foot, drop that down. Now this time, because it's thicker again, I'm going to increase the stitch length slightly, only by 0.5 millimeter, but I'm also going to slacken off the presser foot pressure slightly. And that's only because when things are quite bulky as it's sewing, it can end up puckering like that. Whereas if there's not so much pressure, it tends to cope with that a bit better. So I'm just going to turn this until I see the number 1. So there's less pressure on there now. So I'm going to drop my needle in and make a start. Secure that. And there you go. Nothing skipped, nothing missed, still nice and neat. And it's still really secure. So lastly, I'm just going to show you the grey stitches and more so the blanket stitch. Like I say, the grey stitches, stretch stitches, are for lycra and really quite stretchy fabrics. But then quite nicely, you have the addition of a blanket stitch. So I'm going to go round to D. I'm just going to take this jeans needle back out again whilst I remember. And pop the standard one back in. In the right position for the needle threader, up there, down, oops, I let go, down, under, round, in, through, and pull. You get the idea. Let's drop that in. Okay, so I've gone round to D, but at the moment I'm still on the black stitch length. So it's going to stitch out this blind hem stitch here, which I don't want. I want the blanket stitch, which is the grey one. So I'm going to move this around to the S2, the grey. So now we're going to have this blanket stitch here. Now, at the moment the width is on 0, so we'll just get a straight stitch because there's no width set for it to come across there. So I'm going to go about 3 millimeters. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And there you go, there's your nice neat blanket stitch. And it's really good for finishing off a blanket, that's the whole point in it, but also for doing a plique and things. And as I said in the beginning, it's really unusual for a more kind of basic mechanical machine to come with that stitch. So it's a really good feature on this machine. So this machine comes with 2-year warranty, and in the box you'll find this card that explains it to you. There's also a registration form in there to send off to Bernette, or you can do that online. The choice is yours. So I hope now you're more familiar with the Bernette B05 Crafter machine and that you've decided that it's the right machine for you. If so, it's one that we keep in stock, so head over to our website. Delivery is fast, usually next day, and it's also free. But don't forget, we're here at the Sewing Studio as well for any help or advice that you might need with your new machine. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.